Hello and welcome back to the course. Today will be our third lecture. Hopefully, the first two ones were okay for you guys to grasp. As I've been saying in the previous lectures, if you have any questions, just make sure to write that down into the comment section, and I'll make sure to reply within the next 48 hours. Hopefully, within 24 hours. But let's see. All right. So for today, we will be focusing on some transfer statements. Transfer statements such as if-else statements. You might be wondering what is if-else? Why do we use if-else? Do not worry about them. I'm just writing down the topics that we'll be doing for today right now. And once I'm done with that, then we'll dig deeper into each of them. Okay, so the first thing is if-else statements. So we'll be studying about the basic if else statements, some nested if else statements. Nested means an if else statement inside of an if or an else block. All right, it's a bunch of them merged together. It might be confusing when you hear it for the first time, but as I said, we will go over a bunch of examples, so you don't have to worry about it. Yep. And the second topic that we'll be going over for today is logical operators. Logical. Yep, I'm on a new keyboard. It's pretty hard for me to type. So logical operators. Logical operators there are three types of logical operators that we'll be going over. The first one is an AND logical operator. The second is OR. Third is NOT. So these three are called logical operators. So let's say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's dig deeper into the first one now. All right. So the if-else statements. So these if-else statements, they're known as transfer, they're known as conditionals. And we use them in order to control the flow of our program. So let's say you ask the user for a question. Let's say you ask them 3 plus 3. And the user is going to input an answer. Okay. Then once they're done, you would most probably like to check that answer, right? You would like to check whether it's correct or wrong, and accordingly, you can print a message. In order to do that, you have to use something called as if-else statement. So you can say if the answer is correct, meaning if 3 plus 3, the user did write 6, then it's correct, right? So maybe you could print something like correct. However, if the user wrote something other than 6, then 100% that's not the correct answer, right? 3 plus 3 is 6, not something else. So you could instead print something else, such as false, or you could customize the message. It doesn't really matter. So, what's the syntax of if else statements? All right. So, syntax is as follows. So, initially, okay, before we jump into that, let's ask the user to input the answer for 3 plus 3, all right? So we'll have to use the input function. We've already went through that in the previous lecture, lecture number 2. So if you want, you can go through that before, continuing with this one. So we're going to make a variable, okay? You're going to say user answer, and then we're going to say input. Inside of the input, we're going to ask the question. And the question is, what is the answer of 3 plus 3? What is the answer of 3 plus 3? We're simply asking the user for an answer. And anything that they type in will be stored inside of this variable called user answer. You can name it anything. You don't have to call this user answer. It can literally be blah, blah, anything. Okay. But it's better to, give an appropriate name to the variable. So when you come back to your code in the future and you take a look at it, you can easily figure out what is this variable supposed to do, what it is doing, right? So it's a good habit to, have a good naming the variables in a better method, all right? Okay. So now that we have asked the user for an input, and they'll most probably input something, now what we want to do is we want to check whether the answer is correct or wrong. In order to do that, we have to use if-else statement. So we say if user underscore answer is equals to, all right, the correct answer, and we know the correct answer will be 6, right? So we say if user answers equals to 6, then a colon, and then on to the next line. When you click on the enter to go to the next line, you will realize that there's already an automatic indent. Okay, so inside of a if statement, we need anything that comes inside of a if statement should be indented. But you don't have to worry about that because when you jump onto a new line, it just automatically gets indented. But in case it does not, then what you can do is either click on your spacebar 4 times or just click on the tab key. Okay, the tab key. It's most probably going to be on the left side of your keyboard. So just click on that and there you go. Okay, we have just indented the text. Perfect. So now we are saying if user answers equals to 6, then all we want to do is print correct. So we're going to say print. Yay. Okay. Okay. Instead, let's say, yay, your answer is correct. Awesome. All right. So now, if the user does write 6, we'll be printing this. How about we try to run this? All right. Let's give this a try. Let me move this. All right. So it says, what is the answer of 3 plus 3? We know it's 6. Let's write down 6 and see what happens. There you go. For now, nothing is happening. Do you know why? That's because I'm not sure if I told you guys about this or not, but what happens is when you ask the user for an input, the anything that the user, inputs is always has a string data type. Okay? And since it has a string data type, you can't just write it down like this, right? You have to put down the speech marks. Remember, in the strings, you always have to put down speech marks. Okay? If you don't want to do this, then instead what you can do is convert the input into an integer. And we have already studied about casting as well. We did that in the last lecture, lecture two. So I guess lecture 2 is really important because we'll be further building on what we did in lecture 2. So it's better. It's great if you can go back. If you don't know, if you have maybe forgot something, I would recommend you to go back to lecture 2. To do a quick go through of it, and then come back to this. All right. So in order to convert the input into an integer, so rather than having to use it as a string, right? Because it's a number. We don't want to use that as a string. So what we're gonna do is convert it into an integer. So int bracket and then another bracket, right? So inside of this bracket, we are asking the user for an input. Whatever the user inputs, we'll convert that into an integer. Now let's run it. There you go. We enter 6 and it says, yeah, your answer is correct. All right, let's give it one more try. Okay, instead of 6, let's write down something random. Okay, maybe 9. There you go. Nothing's going to happen, right? Because we're not executing this line. Because the condition for this line to be ran and for the condition for anything inside of this block to be ran is if the answer is equals to 6. If it's not 6, it will simply not be executed. All right. Or what Python will do is simply ignore this, simply skip this. All right, and go further. Like, okay, then I have nothing else after this, and I'm gonna terminate the whole program. Right. Therefore, now to take care of when the user enters a wrong answer, we can use something known as the else block. So else, oh sorry, why am I writing over there? Yeah. Okay, so else, then again, a colon, and then inside of this, maybe you could print, oh no, your answer is wrong. That's it. All right. So anything the user inputs, if it's not 6, the else block will be executed. If it is 6, this will be executed. All right. So let's run this. What is your answer of 3 plus 3? It's 6, right? But I'm going to write 9. Oh, no, your answer is wrong. Let's write down 6 now. It says, yeah, your answer is correct. That's pretty much all that you're supposed to know about if-else statements. To be honest, they're actually pretty simple, but the first few times you go through them, I believe you will find them confusing. But I can tell you one thing, this is a really important thing to know. Anytime you're working on a program, any kind of program that you're making, I'm pretty sure you'll be using the if else statements. You have to. Any complex, any great program that you build, you will be using these. So it's really important. It's one of the fundamentals of programming. So yeah, just make sure that you understand this. If you don't, just write it down in the comment section, the question you have. In case you think, I did not do a good job in explaining it, then what you can do is uh just write down in the comment section that could I please make a separate video for if statements, and I'll make sure to do that. All right, but hopefully this is gonna be sufficient for you guys, because there isn't really that much to know in if else statements, but let's see. Okay, so this is if else statement. Now there's one more thing in this, and that is there's one more block in if else statement, and that block is called as elif, ELIF. Now you might be wondering, what are blocks? What is this block thing that I'm talking about? Blocks. So in this case, the first block is gonna be this much, okay? So this is our if block. Second block will be this. This is called as our else block, okay? Now we're gonna add one more, and that block is gonna be called as an elif block. ELIF. Elif means else if, all right? So instead of writing else if, the short form is elif, ELIF. Now after you write that, you have to write down the condition, because we're saying if, right? We're not just saying else or something, we're saying ELIF. IF means if. So we have to write down the condition. So what we're gonna do is elif, let's say the user inputs, maybe anything greater than 100. Then instead of printing your answers wrong, we're gonna be like, we could instead print a customized message and say, oh no, your answer is too far from the correct one. I mean, the correct answer is 6, and let's say the user input 105. That's just too far. So all we're gonna do is print a customized message just to let the user know that it is wrong, but it is really far from the correct answer. So maybe you should come down a lot, right? So in order to do that, we're gonna say elif user answer is not equals to. If it's greater than 100, then instead of that, what we're gonna print is, oh no, your answer is too far from the correct answer. There you go. Okay, so now what will happen is, if just a brief go through of it again, all right? So what will happen is, if the user does input 6, we will be executing this block. If the user inputs something greater than 100, we will be executing this block. If in any other case, all right, if it's not equals to 6 and if it's not greater than 100, we will be executing this block. Okay, all the remaining cases we'll be executing the else block. Okay, so hopefully this does make sense. Let's do a test run of this. Let's input 101. Okay, something greater than 100. Oh no, your answer is too far from the correct answer, right? Because 101 is really far from 6. So now what we're doing is we're printing customized message. Rather than just telling them the answer is wrong, we're giving them a more accurate representation of what actually happened. So we're telling them that your answer is, of course it's wrong, but it's too far from the correct answer. Maybe try coming down a bit at least, So yeah, the if else blocks, they're really, really helpful. As I said, these are the fundamentals of programming. You'll be using them a lot. Anytime you work on something, I can 100% guarantee you'll be using this a lot. Okay? So we need to make sure that you are able to understand this. Perfect. Now let's move on to the second topic for today, the logical operators. We said and, or, not. These three are the logical operators. Okay, so how can we use them now? All right, so now in the previous example, what we did is we asked the user one question, the answer for 3 plus 3. But this time we're gonna ask them 2 questions, okay? So let's ask the user one more question, and we're gonna call this, user answer, well, sorry, user answer second, okay? The second answer from the user. And again, we're gonna ask the user for the input. This time we will say, what is the answer of 3 minus 3? Okay, so instead of 3 plus 3, 3 minus 3 this time. All right, and again, you have to keep in mind that input function, the data type of it is always a string. Anything the user enters is going to be converted into a string. So if you want to use it as an integer or a float, you have to convert it. You have to use the method called casting. All right, and so we are going to convert the input into an integer by simply saying int, then brackets, and inside of that, we're going to put the input function. Perfect. So now we're going to check if both of these answers are correct. We're going to print, all your answers are correct. You got full marks. If one of them is correct, then what we're going to do is we are going to print that only one of your answers is wrong. You got half marks. And in the case both the answers are wrong, we're simply going to print, oh no, everything you wrote is wrong. All right. So now what we can say is, instead of saying if user answer is equals to 6, we're going to say if user answer is equals to 6, and this is the first logical operator that we'll be studying. And so if user answer is equals to 6 and user answer second is equals to 0, right? Because 3 minus 3 is 0. If this is the case, then we can print, yeah, your both answers are correct. Correct. You got full marks, yeah, right? You got full marks. Now let's jump over to the elif block. So in this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna check if one of the answers is correct. All right, at least if there's one answer that is correct. Okay. That's therefore we're gonna say if elif user answer is equals to 6 or user answer second is equal to 0. So what this is going to do is check if one of this is correct. All right. And if one of them is correct, it's going to execute the block and do whatever we have put inside of the block. In our case, we're simply printing it. Okay. So if elif user answer is equal to 6 or user answer second is equal to 0, meaning one of them is correct, we can say, one of your answers is correct. You got half, you got half marks. There you go. Okay. In case both the answers are correct, we're gonna print this. Why? Because we will be executing this block. If one of them is correct, we will be executing this block. And in case both are wrong, we're simply gonna say, else. I mean, if we don't execute this and we also don't execute this, that means both are wrong, right? That's just logical. We did not execute anything, so both have to be wrong. Therefore, we're simply gonna say your both answers are wrong. That's it. All right, let's try to run this. What is the answer of 3 plus 3? 3 plus 3 is 6, right? For a second, it just bounced off my head. Okay, 3 plus 3 is 6. Let's click on enter. So what is the answer of 3 minus 3? It's 0. Enter. There you go. It says, yeah, your both answers are correct. You got full marks. Let's run it again. What is 3 plus 3? 6. What is 3 minus 3? Let's say I write down a wrong answer. Okay, maybe 6 again. There you go. It says one of your answers is correct. You got half marks. Now let's write down wrong answers for both of them. So 3 plus 3, we're going to write down 6. And 3 minus 3, we're going to write down 6. Sorry, 3 plus 3, we're going to write down 0. And 3 minus 3, we're going to write down 6. Let's click on enter to submit it. There you go. It says, oh no, your both answers are wrong. You got 0 in your exam, right? So yeah, this and this, these both are called the logical operators. You'll probably be using them when, when you're using the if statements, if, elif, or else statements. So they are pretty important as well, okay? And also or. Okay, the third logical operator is not. Okay, so let's comment all this. Okay. Now, let's say, okay, yep, all right. So now we have to implement the not logical operator into an example. So let's use the same question, okay? 3 plus 3. So we're gonna paste it, we're just gonna copy it from the top, and paste it over here. So now what is the answer of 3 plus 3? It's 6, right? Now instead of saying if user answer is equals to 6, instead of saying that, what we're gonna say is if not user answer is equals to 6, meaning if the user answer is not equals to 6, meaning it's something else, all right? Then what I want you to do is print, oh no, your answer is wrong. Okay. But if it is, I mean, if it is equals to 6, then this will simply not be executed, right? Because this condition says if it's not equals to 6. If it's not executed, then we could put an else block in there, right? And that will simply say, yeah, your answer is correct. There you go. All right. So yeah, all we're doing is we're checking if the user answer is equal to 6. If it is equal to 6, you call the else block. If it is not equal to 6, you call the if block. That's literally all you're supposed to know. The if statements and the logical operators. I will be posting some practice questions for you guys to do. And hopefully you'll be able to figure them out. I'll make sure that they're not too complex. I'll make sure that you guys can actually do it. It's not something which is just simply gonna bounce off your head or something. So yeah, let's end the class over here. I guess this one's gonna be a pretty small one. Okay, not really. It's 22 minutes. Okay, so let's end it over here. I will, as usual, I'll be posting the questions towards the end of the video. Make sure to do them. Any questions, post them in the comment section. Bye and take care.